Yeah. Kevin says, play is different than record. LOL.
Yes, it is. I'm live streaming, so if you want to catch this later, you can also catch it on my personal page.
Okay, cool. Well, so for me, this is a huge honor and a pleasure to introduce one of my business partners. Kyrstin's one of the first people actually that jumped into this crazy business with me when, I was really in my first year. I had this amazing vision of what I believed we could build. And maybe, Kyrstin, you can kind of share a little bit about how we met initially and how this whole crazy thing came about where, you ended up taking on this challenge and working with me and then absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, sure. So I had always thought that I wanted to be in real estate, even when I was a teenager, and thought that that was something that I would love to do because I really love houses and design and yeah, that just is really like renovations and things like that are really exciting to me. And so when I was in college, I studied it a little bit, and then I kind of went like, I'm also really, really sensitive. And I was like, I don't know if this is really the right career path for me. I'm not sure I would be able to handle the like cutthroat business model that a lot of agents sort of do, right? And so I put that on the back burner. I kind of put it out of my mind for 10 years, and I took administration and was working in administration. Then I had some kids, and then I was working actually as a waitress part-time because that was just the easiest job for me as a mom. And so then I was actually selling my house. We bought our first house, and my husband at the time, or he's still my husband, but at the time he was working in the oil patch, and he's a cook. So he was out there, and 2 weeks after we took possession of our first house, he got laid off. That was when the oil really tanked. So for 8 months, he was laid off, and he went back to school, and it was really tough. So the second he started going back to work, I was like, God, this house is not working for us. I need to sell our house and find something with a suite. So that's what we did. We listed our house, and at that point, I was really finding real estate was actually like a hobby of mine, and really enjoying going out and looking and seeing all the different things. So then I started seeing this like sign everywhere, this Jason Simard. And I was like, who the heck is Jason Simard? Like, I never heard of that guy before, but he was everywhere. There was signs, and he'd shown my house like 5 times. And so I was like, what the heck? So anyways, he had this listing that I thought might work for us. And so I gave him a call. It ended up not being the one for us, but I really just liked the way that he approached the buying process. And so we ended up working with him, and he offered me a job, and I just kind of went,
Whoa. Let's stop for a second. So I met you, we met at a playground. Remember that? We met at a playground at a picnic table. You had your kids and you're running around, and they're running around doing their thing.
And asked me if I wanted a coffee, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, nice. And Jason was so broke at the time that he brought water for himself and brought me a coffee. I remember that. I was like, now I feel stupid drinking this $5 coffee.
Oh my God, really? Okay, well, I don't remember the broke part, but I was broke before getting into real estate. That's how you saw, you're like, oh wow, this guy's really hungry. So what impressed me about you though was like, okay, here's this mom with 3 kids. They were all 3 of them were under 6.
Yeah.
Like you had your 2 boys and your daughter, and you were like calm, cool, collected. And we talked about looking at houses, and you weren't looking at houses the same way that other people do. You were looking for those houses that needed paint, that needed flooring, that needed some love. You were looking for value points. I was like, I like the way this girl thinks. And I liked how calm you were able to remain during the showings, like managing the 3 kids. And like, I was impressed with how you approach things and your demeanor. And I was like, man, I think she would do really well in real estate. And anybody that knows me knows that like a lot of the decisions I make aren't always just like thought out. They're like how I feel about things. Cause I'm like, logically, you probably weren't like exactly what most people would say in recruitment would say, oh, that's like the exact person you need to go for. But for me, you were exactly what we needed in the business. I was like, man, she's a mom. She's got 3 kids. She's smart. She's got a great temperament. She's real. I'm like, man, I think this girl could do really, really well. So I remember when I pitched it to you. How did I pitch it? Do you remember that?
I think you just said, have you ever thought about a career in real estate? And I just said, actually, yes. And I remember at the time, Caitlin, she's our assistant, she was going on mat leave, and I was like, I could fill in for a year if you wanted, which we now know would have been a huge mistake.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't have been a good fit. I was like, I was never considering you for an admin position, just for the record. Just because you went to school for that did not mean that I thought that was going to be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
So I remember I was like, man, I see a lot of potential, and I'm like, I think she could do really, really well. And I'm like, I really want to open up a door for her and let her just walk right through it. And so talk to us, okay? So we created this initially. So I created this position through, we called it our client care position, right? Which would be sort of like a great training ground for you to become a realtor, build up your confidence, make some money while you're learning. So maybe share your experience with that, and maybe some of the struggles that came from literally being a stay-at-home mom with the 3 kids for a while to now being in the workforce. Maybe walk people through that.
Yeah, that was really difficult because at the time I was unlicensed. So I had a very strict timeline in which to get licensed. It was also November, which was a really slow time in real estate. So Jason was paying me a very light salary, and with the ability to grow if you were successful in the role. But that's very difficult to do in November. I'm not sure. I guess most people on the call probably know how we work with our online leads, and the lead conversion for an online lead is average 8 months. And in November, people are maybe starting to look, but they're not like ready to buy. So at that point, we had kind of really put all our eggs into this basket. Again, my husband had just started working back in the oil patch. So he was gone 3 weeks and home for 1. And so for those 3 weeks, I was basically a single mom with the kids by myself. And I was like, this is not working anymore. And so he came home, and we, like I said, put all our eggs in this basket. I'm like, listen, I'm going to do this for 4 months. We're just going to really cut all our costs. I'm going to get my real estate license. I'm going to work this job, and we're just doing it. And so it was really hard because I was working 8 hours a day, and I also had to study for my real estate license. And I don't know if anybody remembers what their textbook looks like, but it's about this thick, and you have to memorize it, the entire thing. So I ended up doing that in 4 months, and then somehow having to raise 3 kids at the same time. So that was really difficult.
And when you first came in, when we first started working together, you know what I'm like, right? Like I'm like this big picture thinker, go-getter, let's go, like probably a lot of that real strong masculine energy. And you were coming in from a different perspective. You'd been at home with 3 kids, and where you were looking at this business maybe slightly differently, which was actually refreshing because it's what makes us a good combo. But I mean, I remember those early days, like, there was some tears. Do you remember that? Like how tough it was for you. You were like trying to juggle the young kids, and being a mom is like next level, right? Like being a dad is a huge responsibility, and we have other burdens that we carry, but being a mom is a really big full-time thing. I mean, the kids are pulling on you for attention all the time. How did you juggle that? I mean, seriously, how the heck did you get through that in the beginning? Because you were studying for a course, 3 kids, your husband's working out of town. I mean, that must have been tough. So maybe share people like some of the moments behind the scenes. How many times did you think about quitting and being like, I can't do this?
All the time. All the time. It was really difficult. At the when I did start, though, he did come home, so he was home looking after the kids, because at the time my kids were quite young. Marley, my youngest, she was just a baby, like I think just a couple months old. So he obviously was a tremendous help, but there was no sleeping. I didn't know what sleep was for about 6 months. And I don't know, like, honestly, it's really kind of a blur. It's just one foot in front of the other. Even today, like, I find that today, sometimes it's just one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, and it's funny because so many people get so focused on the big, the big mountain that they have to climb. And it looks so insurmountable when you look from the bottom and you look at the top of the mountain. But you know what? It becomes a lot easier when you just literally focus on one step at a time, right? And you just keep moving forwards. And again, we've all had our journeys to get to where we are in real estate, but I mean, that first 6 months, I remember how difficult that was for you. And like, it was like there was some tears, there was like, some self-doubt. I remember, you shared with me some things like, your own family, some people that are close to you, and I know they love you. And I had the same thing with some of my family members who thought I was crazy leaving, the comforts of a successful, bank manager career and things like that. So maybe share some of the objections that you had to overcome with your own family in the beginning, because I know you had that going against you, right?
Yeah, for sure. There was a lot of doubters out there. I had a lot of support too, but a lot of doubters. I remember when I had first taken the position, we were at a family dinner, and somebody said to me, I was just telling them like, oh, he's doing this and he's that, and so this is my plan, and then by the first year I'm going to do this. And I was really excited and pumped up, talking like you, with my hands, and somebody went, yeah, that's unrealistic, you better have a backup plan in place. And I was like, we don't. Like, these are literally all my eggs in this basket. And but honestly, I've had that a lot throughout my life. People saying like, yeah, exactly, Joe, haters gonna hate, that's for sure. But honestly, that kind of thing, when somebody looks at me and says you can't do that, that just makes me mad, and it just makes me want it that much more. So
Yeah, you definitely have that nature in you for sure, and sometimes I purposely, piss you off just to get that fire, because I've seen that fire, and I know that you say you're sensitive, which is absolutely true, right? We're both fairly sensitive and we have our moments together, right? Like this brother and sister relationship. But at the end of the day, what I really respect about you is you are way tougher than you let on. Like, you're tough. You've been, like, I've seen your journey because I've been a part of it, in a sense, like working with you and being able to see it. I'm like, man, this girl's got a lot of strength. And I've actually seen a tremendous amount of growth as just like as a business partner, as an agent, your confidence levels. It's been really, honestly, inspiring to watch. So when you think back in your first year, you sold 49 homes, which is like an insane amount for people to comprehend in your first year. How did you do that? What were some of the things that you stuck to and, focused on to get that, so people can kind of get something that can help them, that maybe they're having some of those self-doubts, those struggles, which are normal, by the way. How did you push through that? What were some of the things that you did that you can maybe share with the audience?
well, I think just remaining humble. I can't stand it when people are like, oh, I'm so good, oh, I'm this, I'm that, and this is what I'm gonna do for you. I don't really, and I don't think that a lot of people really relate to that. So I've just spent my entire life, and especially my career, being humble and just focusing on marrying people's wants and dreams with the reality. And when that comes together, and seeing the joy that brings them, that just makes my heart swell. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, that is the entire reason I got into this. And it just what makes those 14-hour days of hell worth it in the end.
Yeah. So that's awesome. I love that you're client centric. You care about meaningful connections, and you have a lot of great clients that come back to you over and over and refer their friends and family. So, but what are some of the activities that you did that helped you be successful? Because I mean, look, connecting with people is great, but I mean, there's a lot of things that you were doing Maybe share with people some of the things that you were doing consistently to help drive those sales results, because those numbers are incredible.
Sure. So I think going from nothing to being a more well-known agent is a really hard task. And so just getting out there and hitting the pavement, getting your name out there, getting your face out there is really important. So, I mean, we obviously did a lot of, and still do a lot of phone prospecting. The videos are really, really helpful. And one of the things that I did in the early days is we did open houses every weekend, and I would create these little postcards, and I would go around to the neighborhood and door knock and talk to these people like, hey, you know, what are you doing tomorrow? I've got coffee on, come over. I'd love to show you around and get to know you a little bit. Honestly, it didn't really generate any leads at that point. Like, I didn't get any like neighborhood listings or anything from it back then, but just being able, I truly believe that in, I don't know if you guys have seen The Secret, but I truly believe that just sort of putting that vibe out into the universe, that with an open heart, really just brings in more business, essentially. So just having that mindset of abundance and helping and just getting out there really just attracted in my life tenfold, right? Some of the other things that I did were live streams from the open houses and things like that. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Well, you're kind of skipped over a pretty important part that I think launched your career. I mean, you spent what, almost 4 months on the phones.
Oh, sure.
So talk about that, because that was also like, I mean, that built a massive pipeline for you, didn't it?
Right. Okay.
And you had a lot of opportunities. So like, I think people need to hear that, because that was also a really big way that you started your career too, right?
Sure. So as I said, it was November when I started. And so I was on the phones until I think it was March when I got out showing homes. So that entire time I was just talking to people and sending them properties and nurturing the relationship along, which was actually, you know, it was really crappy in the beginning, because I just felt like I was spinning my tires, like nothing's happening, nobody's going out, nobody's looking at things. But in November, if you're thinking about selling your home in the spring, you're probably going to start looking at properties online in October, November, December, January. So being able to find those people right in the beginning stages of their search and building a relationship with them on the phone, and nurturing that along till April, when they're actually getting out there and starting to look at homes, you're so much farther along in the process because you've already spent 4 months building that relationship up, right? So that, I remember when I got licensed, I actually remember I was in Vancouver taking my applied practice course, and after it was finished, I had, or it was 2 days. So the first night I was there and I was by myself. So I went down to the pub in the hotel I was staying at and talking to this girl, and she's like, oh, we're actually going to be coming over to the island next week. And I was like, well, crap, that's going to be my first sale. And so I was sitting there booking my appointments for next week when I was actually going to be licensed, which gave me a huge head start.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, while you were doing sort of what we call our client care role, or inside sales agent role, which is something that we've used to catalyst a lot of people's careers in our group, you had like 3-4 months of like really nothing that you felt tangible at the time. But what you didn't realize is it like led to this massive pipeline that like just gave you like a huge head start over everybody else, because in those first 90 days as a realtor, you were putting quite a few sales together, weren't you?
Yeah.
And it was work that you had done 4 months earlier, 5 months earlier, and you'd started early, 6 months earlier in some cases. And this is something that I really, I talk to people a lot about, and maybe you can kind of share your thoughts on it. But you gotta have a pipeline, guys, right? Like you have to constantly be working things and understand that real estate isn't something that always just happens in a week, a month. Like Kyrstin, I mean, you're in year 4 now. I mean, how many clients in the last couple years have you sold homes to that you've been nurturing for 2 years, or that we've been nurturing for 3 years? I mean, share that, because that's something that people need to hear. People are always looking for the now business, but they forget that you need to also cultivate long-term business too. So maybe share that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of clients that we've been nurturing for a really long time, and to actually have them, a lot of them are from out of town too. Like there isn't a ton of unless there's somebody that just really picky or whatever, but but a lot of those like people that are moving to the island, they start looking online several years in advance. So those, they do come together after sometimes 2-3 years. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know you've had a lot of wins recently too that are like, that have been in our pipeline for years and that you've been working on and touching them. The other thing that's really been noticeable. So, okay. So year 1, I mean, a lot of your business came from internet marketing stuff that we were doing, some of our referral pillars that we had in place, but in those early years, a lot of it came from our internet stuff that we were working. You had an inside sales agent team, like it was Jamie at the time and Joe that I think were working and helping tee up opportunities. You were also working a lot of the opportunities that you'd set up for yourself. So let's fast forward the last 2-3 years. Something started to shift in your business. You're starting to see a lot more repeat and referral business. So maybe talk about some of the things that you've focused on to be able to get a lot of this repeat business that you've been doing.
Yeah, I think, it comes down to the initial experience with those clients. Like if they, I've been building relationships with a lot of those people too. A lot of my repeat or referral business comes from building those friendships with those people and then maintaining contact with them. So, I've recently started doing like a bomb spam mail to, not spam, but it is a spam mail to
Targeted marketing.
to my past clients, just sort of letting them know like, hey, what's going on, this is what I'm up to. I think it's really important to connect with those people. Like I don't, that's the beauty of real estate. Like it's so different from every other industry because it's not so businessy. I can have those personal relationships and maybe be a little bit more casual and show people that, hey, I'm a real person. I have real family and a real life. And, when you bring them into your inner circle, they're way more likely to continue on and be lifelong clients.
One of the things that you did really early on too is you were one of the people in the group that was constantly like, I want to be in front of the camera. I want to be in front of the camera. You would take any opportunity to be in front of the camera, and you had a lot of really creative ideas. So talk about like some of the stuff like Nanaimo that you came up with, what you did with that. Cause like, I think that helped you build your personal brand quicker than a lot of people. And I think you understood that early, and that was one of your areas that you focused on. So maybe share some of that.
Yeah, a little secret that people that know me really well know is that actually my childhood dream was to be an actress. So when I got the opportunity to act and be a realtor at the same time, it was like, wow, this is like a match made in heaven. I did a ton of like stage acting and stuff in my younger years. And so that was really fun. I had a lot of fun creating those videos. And in the Nanaimo was actually kind of a sidebar of what you were already doing. Like you were doing your helpful hint videos and stuff like that. And so I kind of thought, well, if we're, attracting people to our place, why don't we show them what we have? And I was born and raised in Nanaimo, so I consider myself an area expert, and I just felt like I could showcase a lot of things that people wouldn't know, especially if they weren't from here. So yeah,
we did some fun creative stuff too. Remember like the top 5 things to do in Nanaimo?
Yeah, that was really fun. The top 5 craziest things to do. Yeah,
so like you pushed me off a bridge, bungee jumping.
Yeah.
I pushed you into a lake. We snorkeled with seals in the
Hmm.
ocean. We skyboarded. Remember that?
Flyboarding. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, flyboarding. We did axe throwing. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I mean, what you were doing though is you talked about acting, but the reality is like the person on that camera is the person that we know. You were being very authentic and you were being an ambassador for the community. You were showcasing different things that you could do. You were showing different sides of yourself. And it's one of those things, and I know that you and I both believe this, is like, if people don't know that you're in real estate, you're never going to be an option for them. And
Right.
so that's why it's so important to be constantly putting content that shows who you are in different facets of your business so that you can be top of mind. So maybe share some of the insight that you've gained, because I know you've been investing a lot of time in personal growth this year. Maybe share some of the insights that you've been learning around something that's helping you in your business right now, because you're doing very well.
Yeah, I don't,
I know you've been doing a lot with social media lately. You've been like doing a lot of learning and growth around that. Anything you want to share there?
well, I mean, with social media, I just, it was more just about, when this whole COVID thing hit, people weren't out seeing seeing each other anymore. So I spent a lot of time going out into the community and going to yoga and doing these things and taking my children to certain events. And a lot of times I'd have a camera crew following me at these events, like the downtown night markets and things like that. So there was a lot of exposure just even that way, right? But when that was taken away from me, because we were all having to sit in our house, it was paramount that we were still being able to be top of mind. So just I took some courses on how to make the algorithm work in your favor, because as you know, Facebook is constantly changing the algorithm, and it's getting harder and harder and harder to be out there in everybody's newsfeed. So just doing things like that, doing stories, like adding to your Facebook stories and Instagram, and just getting all the different social media platforms to link up and being able to share them on the different platforms and stuff like that, and just showing people that you're relatable. You know what I mean?
Talk about the value of, because a lot of people go into this business and they think they need to be the main team leader and build it. And some people choose to kind of work within a team and a system. Maybe talk about the benefits that you've found being part of a group and a team, and sharing that, because I think sometimes people underestimate the value of being part of a solid team. So maybe you could share how maybe our culture and how that's helped you.
Yeah, that is probably one of the biggest pluses to working on a team, is the culture and the camaraderie. Because as an agent, when you take the course, it doesn't really like teach you how to be an agent. It teaches you about the law and how to write a contract and all that kind of stuff, but those aren't like tangible skills that you can then take out into the workforce and create business for yourself. So it was really important to have somebody to bounce ideas off, and even still to this day, like we're constantly putting our heads together and coming up with different brand, like social media ideas or branding ideas, or if I have a question about a client or a clause or something like that, just being able to have that community around you is really important. And I know that you talk about this a lot, about being a jack of all trades is, you really want to get really good and master one skill. And so I don't know how I would be able to be a master of all those skills, especially with 3 kids and trying to maintain a work-life balance. So being able to just focus on my role and then have these amazing people that help me and support me in that role is just so important.
So maybe for some of the people that don't know how our team structure works, maybe share, when you talk about like the different roles, what those look like within our group and how they all work together.
Yeah, so there's obviously, you know, the agents like myself and you and a couple of others, and our jobs are to be out in the cars, showing houses. We negotiate the contracts, and we basically take the client from, okay, I'm ready to start looking at houses, to here's your keys. But before that, there's those, you know, 7 or 8 months of nurturing that that Jamie and Joe and Sarah do behind the scenes. And so I mean, of course, we jump in a little bit early sometimes, and we build those relationships or get into a meeting or a Zoom meeting these days to meet each other, right? But a lot of that is the initial stages are the client care agents working with them and building the trust and the relationship. And at the same time, like, especially in the spring market, sometimes I'm out in the car for like 8-10 hours a day. So it's really difficult to sometimes get back to those requests about different information about the properties, calling the city, that kind of stuff. So it's really helpful to have somebody that you can work so closely with that can do all of that kind of things, those things for you to really help you. It provides a higher level of service to our clients because they're not waiting all day for me to get back to them.
Right.
And then also when I'm with a client, I'm not texting or answering my phone or something like that, because I just found that happened a lot when I was personally looking for homes. There was a lot of agents out there that I had worked with in the past or met at open houses, and they were like on their phones, and I just thought that was so rude. How can you look at a house if you had questions and your agent's on the phone in the backyard or something like that? So it just enables us to give a way higher level of service and a better experience.
I mean, I'll say this for anybody that's listening to this: if you're doing the level of production that Kyrstin's doing, I really think it would be hard to give world-class value and service without having a full support team around you. So, you know, with us, we have our inside sales agent team, which we call client care, right? Which are helping us with nurturing and prospecting. And then we also have like the backbone to our business, which is our admin team. So talk about the value of having a strong admin team and how that's benefited you in your career.
So we have 3 wonderful girls who they literally are just like our everything. They are the glue that holds us together. They are my tech support team. They make sure that all the paperwork is in order, because when you're out in the cars showing the different houses and you're trying to do your home stuff, and it's just, sometimes it's like this big tornado, and so sometimes you might forget, like, oh, I need to get this PDS signed, or oh, I need to get this into our conveyance department. And having somebody that is organized, because I'm not very organized, to keep you in check is so valuable.
Well, and the nice thing too that our admin team does as well, that, you know, even our agents probably forget sometimes, but like all the after service touches, like the birthday brownies and the birthday card personalized from our agents, the spring referral campaign cards, the Christmas cards, like the contest, the social media stuff, like they really are the backbone of that for us in a lot of ways. And they really help implement that. So, you know, big, huge shout out. I mean, again, I would never be able to do the levels that I've done in business without having a whole support team working with me. And I think it's important for people to see that there are benefits. If you get into the right system, it can help support you in your lifestyle. And, you know, the biggest thing that we also talk about in our group is being able to check your ego at the door, right? You know, we're all on the same field. We're all playing together, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses that we bring to the table. And at the end of the day, together, we do a lot more than if we're just trying to do it individually. So, Kyrstin, thank you so much for sharing a lot of insights. Anything that you want to give to that agent right now who's maybe struggling, who's, you know, fearful, doubting herself, who is like, man, can I do this? I've got so much against me. What do you have to say to that woman, that agent right now that's struggling?
Yeah. So I guess I just want to put it out there. Like, I'm not special at all. I'm just regular. I'm a regular person. I live in a regular house. I have regular fears. probably the same fears and self-doubts that you're having right now. But I also have really high hopes and aspirations. And I want to share a story about when we were in Mexico. We went on this zip line tour, and it was really scary. Like, some of these zip lines, we were like hanging upside down, hundreds of feet over the jungle. And the last one was a water slide. I do not like water slides, really. They just really scare me. And I remember standing at the top, and I was like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. But I just remembered looking back at my life, and even when I decided to take the plunge into real estate, I just said to myself, you know what? This isn't going to kill me. This is, like I said earlier, there is no growth in your comfort zone, right? So sometimes you just have to take the plunge and just go for it. And I may be scared shitless, you may be scared shitless, but if you don't try, you're never going to become anything.
Yeah. And you know what? It's like we talk about all the time, perfection is the enemy of good enough, right? Just do. Don't overthink things. Just try. I promise you a lot of growth happens when you do things. So there's some questions in the audience. So any tips for a new agent just entering the field? So if you were giving advice to an agent that was like, Kyrstin, I want to be successful. I mean, you've done so well. What can I do to set myself up for success? What are some of the things that you would recommend and suggest?
Well, just like, phone prospecting is not the funnest job in the world. And a lot of agents really hate doing it. A lot of agents don't do it. So honing in on that was, I think, a really big stepping stone for our success, because there was a huge gap in things that weren't being done. So us coming in and filling that gap was able to sort of catapult our success really fast. So
Yeah.
that was
So leads, prospect, like get into a prospecting mode, get some leads, pick up the phone. That would be big. What are some of the other tips that you would give, maybe even around, support? Because I think having support helps a lot. Would you agree? Like a good group around you in some way, shape, or form. So maybe talk about that.
Yeah, just making sure that that you have like a positive outlook and positive people around you to support you, because there are a lot of times where I've been in a funk and I've been sort of self-doubt and negative talk from my monkey mind, but being able to have those people that can be like, that's stupid, why would you think like that, like, and sort of snap you out of that negative mindset, and just focusing on the positives is really important in everything, not just real estate, not just business, but like your entire life. If you're not focusing on the positives, you're going to just attract that negative energy.
Were you super nervous on your first contract?
Yes, I was really super nervous for months, for the first couple of months. And even like, that doesn't go away. I have gained a lot of confidence in like writing contracts and negotiating contracts, but there are still things out there, even sometimes when I'm going out with certain clients, I get nervous sometimes. That never goes away.
Yeah, and you know what? That's something I talk about with people too. Like I get nervous before making a phone call. I get nervous before talking to a client. It's because I care, and because I know that that's where I don't allow myself to be paralyzed by that. I just push through it. Confidence, always comes after you do something, never before. So I think that's great. If you were to go back and give yourself one piece of advice and do something different from what you did in the beginning, anything that you would change or give yourself some advice on?
Yeah, I don't know if there's really anything that I would change, because I'm a big believer in everything that happens for a reason, and anything like you either make it or you grow, right? Like mistakes are only an opportunity to learn, right? So I don't want to sit there and tell you that I have regrets, because I don't. Every mistake that I've made has given me a chance to make that next time better. So I think if I were to look at myself 3 years ago, the only thing that I would sort of say to myself is like, hey girl, you got this, you're going to do it. Right. Because like I said, I don't dwell and regret the past at all.
How do you deal with the emotional roller coaster, being an emotional person, right? How do you deal with the emotional ups and downs of this business? Because that's something that I see a lot of people struggle with. And I'm not going to lie, there's been times in my career where I'm like, man, these highs feel great and these lows feel tough. How do you get through that? Because I mean, it's great sometimes, but sometimes it feels pretty tough, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. So just being able to sometimes check out, even if it's just for like an hour or even 15 minutes sometime. Like for me, if I'm having a really crappy day or if I'm just done, I just go for a walk on the beach. I just leave my phone in the car and I go and sit by the ocean for a while. So sometimes it just takes that like minute. I just need to put it away. And even, you know, in my personal life, sometimes I'm like that with my kids. Like I just lock myself in the bathroom for a couple minutes because you cannot deal with the problems if you're at that heightened emotional level, right? You just can't.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's great advice. Comment from the audience here: mistakes made by anyone on the team allows the team to grow without each member making a mistake individually. So that's
Absolutely.
true. I mean, we all learn from each other, right? And we all support one another and have each other's back. And none of us have had everything go perfectly. And you know, we've all made mistakes and things like that. But I think the key thing is that at the end of the day, there is a mutual respect and there is like a support group that we've kind of created within our group and our team. And we're trying to actually build that out and create this community where we can all support each other to thrive and do better. I'm a big fan of the mastermind, you know, and like I always think of our team as this like amazing mastermind group. When we put our heads together, we come up with some really innovative and creative things. A lot of things that we've done, we're not one single person's mastermind. It was everybody chipping in and working together. And it's pretty fun. It's a lot of fun working with you. And it's so cool to sit back and just watch you really thrive. And one of the things that you said to me last year that was like a real proud moment for me is you told me, Jason, I feel like I'm selling as many houses I've ever sold, but I have more balance in my life. I remember you telling me that last year and it really stood out to me. And I was like, man, that feels really good to hear, because that was something we were always working towards. And it didn't feel very balanced in the first couple of years for any of us, including you. But the fact that we've been able to create these systems and synergies where we can all have more balance in our lives is I think made us happier people as well in our business. Like I think we're enjoying the business more, and I think it's what's going to create more longevity. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. It's real. Like I'm a strong believer in self-care, right? Like you cannot be the best person. You cannot be the best agent. You cannot be the best mom if you are feeling like crap all the time. So if you aren't making sure that your mental health and that your, you know, your just sense of self isn't at its peak, how could you possibly provide that and give that to your clients?
Awesome. Any gratification from clients that you carry forward and are really proud of?
There's just so many. I mean, it's hard to keep track of them all, but every single time I close a deal and get a thank you is really gratifying. So I can't really think of any one specific thing off the top of my head, other than just, you know, having those clients remain my friends and come back and refer their family to me and their friends and things like that.
Awesome. Great. Any final thoughts, KP?
I don't think so. I think that's basically it. But well, I guess one thing is just these webinars that you've been hosting is really important, because you said something a few minutes ago, or actually Joe said it about mistakes being made by anyone on the team allows the team to grow without everybody having to make those mistakes. And I truly believe that that's so important, because in these mastermind things, because how great is it that I can literally like download my learning experiences and share them with you guys, and likewise you share yours with me, and that way we know, okay, well now we just don't do that, or that didn't work, so maybe do it this way next time. That's so important, and just takes you from ground zero to maybe 10 steps ahead instead of having to go through those fumbles on your own.
Yeah. And again, KP, I got to thank you so much for being an amazing business partner, working with me. And actually, I mean, you believed in our vision, you know, when it was still just being developed, right? And you were one of the people that just jumped in feet first. And like you said, you went all in, based on, like, you know, I had some success, but it was still very early. And it was, a lot of it was like what I was envisioning, and hey, I want you to be a part of this. We're going to build this together. And I'm just so grateful that you took that leap, and that we've been able to prove a lot of doubters wrong, and that you keep, you know, kicking butt. So thank you so much for sharing. And again, it's such a pleasure and honor to work with you.
Yeah, thanks. The feeling is mutual.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hopefully you got a couple little nuggets from there. You can see that a real person could go through real ups and downs in the business and actually thrive and do exceptionally well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, you can hit the stop recording button.